Brought to you by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast equipment rentals in Brooklyn, New York. JMRNY.com. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend. I'm Jason Godbey, and today on the program, we're talking murder, mayhem, and mustaches, Murder on the Orient Express, and Death on the Nile. And to help me do that, joining me via Zoom, she is the founder and editor of fanbolt.com, Miss Emma Loggins. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's so good to see you.
Great to see you too. It's been a minute since I've been on.
It has been a minute, and we're going to talk about some movies which we haven't done before. So this will be fun. You are Our Lady of Fandom, and I thought it would be appropriate to have you come on and talk about these movies because they do have a pretty rabid fan base. Like they do have some pretty loyalist folks, and it's a property that's been around since 1934, I think, was the first appearance of this character. So lots of history. So we're going to talk about Murder on the Orient Express, and we're going to talk about Death on the Nile. So you haven't seen Murder on the Orient Express yet?
Not.
Okay, I haven't seen Death on the Nile. So I do know the story a little bit. I saw I think it was a 1978 version with Peter Ustinov, but it's been a really long time since I've seen that. And for those of you who have not seen either movie, we're going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible and not spoil the mystery. Murder on the Orient Express actually came out in 2017, and we can talk a little bit about the circumstances, I guess, of these movies a little bit. And kind of
good wording.
so like 2017 Murder on the Orient Express comes out, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a classic tale. It's based on the Agatha Christie novel Hercule Poirot on the Orient Express. Somebody's killed, there's a bunch of suspects, you can fill in the rest. He solves the mystery, yada yada yada. And this novel was first made back into a movie back in 1974 by Sidney Lumet. Both films kind of follow the same formula. You get a great big actor, big personality to play Poirot, and then you pack the cast with stars. The 78 version had like Sean Connery, Ingrid Bergman, all of these really like classic, like marquee name actors. It was an ensemble of marquee name actors. In Branagh's version, you've got Penelope Cruz. Of course, you've got Branagh as playing Poirot, Leslie Odom, Daisy Ridley, who's, hot coming off of the Star Wars thing, Josh Gad, Johnny Depp, Derek Jacobi, Michelle Pfeiffer, Judi Dench, Olivia Colman, who's an Oscar winner. And the list is just like everybody is a star. And he did the same thing, Death on the Nile as well. I really enjoyed Murder on the Orient Express, even though I had seen it before and I knew the ending. Like, it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to see what he did with it. He does make certain changes to it in terms of the story, and I feel like his version of Poirot is the most three-dimensional Poirot. I haven't seen. There's been other versions. Finney did it in 74, then in 78 through the 80s, there was Peter Ustinov. He played the character in many TV movies. And then later, for almost 20 years, I think David Suchet played it on British television. So the character's never not been around. Our colleague, William Hammond, with his review of Death on the Nile, he said that he hadn't seen Murder on the Orient Express, but he called it a remake. And I'm like, it's not really a remake. Like that's like saying you're remaking Hamlet. Yeah, it's been around since 1934. So, the property is almost 100 years old. So you're just doing another adaptation from the book that hadn't been done in like 40 odd years. Branagh, and I'm sure he does this in Death on the Nile as well. I call his directing style go big or go home. Like, it is this gigantic scope of a thing, shoots it on 65 millimeter, shot in real locations. The train in Orient Express is a real train that you actually get to see pull out of the station, and it's just gorgeous. So it's funny that Sidney Lumet said this because he was such a great icon of directing. And if you're a budding filmmaker out there, if you haven't read his book on filmmaking, it's definitely required reading. But he said that the difference between, this is a melodrama. He would call this a melodrama. And the difference between drama and melodrama is, in a drama, the characters drive the plot, and in a melodrama, the plot drives the characters, which I think the definition fits here. And I'm assuming the same is true with the sequel. Murder on the Orient Express, I would say, visionary, great interpretation of the character. They do open it up a little bit to make it a little bit more diverse. Leslie Odom plays a character that's normally not played by an African American. They do have to kind of create some story beats around that, and they do talk about it a little bit. So they, because it's made in the 30s, obviously America was still segregated in the 30s, and of course he's wonderful in the part because he's a terrific actor. They do a more modernist interpretation, even though it's set in the period. But it's a beautiful movie, and I wish I could have seen it in the theater. Like I wish I only saw it on at home, and now I couldn't even find it streaming anywhere. The only place I could find it, I think I found it on. I think I just had to buy it. I don't think it was streaming anywhere at the time. So hopefully by the time this comes out, it'll be streaming. You can watch it, and then you can use this as a companion piece. So Death on the Nile, you saw it. I read your review. It didn't sound like a great review. So give me like a little synopsis of the. Give me a little synopsis of the movie, and kind of give me some of your thoughts.
So while on vacation on the Nile, Pro must investigate the murder of a young heiress, and we kind of we started in the film in a very interesting place. So much so that I thought we were actually in a Belfast screening when we started it, because it starts very early on in Pro's life, and then we kind of just move forward from there and kind of get to learn a little bit about his backstory and kind of why he is the way he is, which makes sense later. So it does pay off in the end. But it's a very large cast. It is, at every kind of turn, you're like trying to figure out, I wasn't familiar with the story beforehand. So I'm trying to figure out, is it who I think it is? Because I feel like I know who it is from fairly early on in the film. And I think that was some of my criticism in my review, is that it felt very predictable. And I kind of wish that it was just not as easy to guess from the very beginning for someone that's not familiar with the material. That being said, it was an enjoyable film. It's the second film that I've seen in theaters this year. It's still a very weird landscape for media in theaters. So anytime we actually get to go and see something, in a press screening, it's always a very special event. But the ensemble cast works great together. Everyone was great in their role. It was funny, after the film, one of my colleagues didn't realize that it was Russell Brand in the film as one of the characters. He plays the doctor, and I want to see him in more serious roles after this. That was one of my takeaways. But everyone does a fabulous job. It's a great cast. There is a little bit of a drama, or as you put it, unique situation with one of the lead actors that I didn't necessarily think he was going to have as large of a role in it. I mean, this isn't a spoiler. Armie Hammer's in it. He is one of the main people in it, and there's a little bit of controversy around him. And just like downplaying it, but he's not someone that's going to sell tickets to a movie right now, so it makes sense that they downplayed his involvement in the trailer. But he is very much in every scene, and if you've heard about any of what happened or what everything going on with him, it can be a little bit distracting in points, just because I didn't expect him to be in as much of the movie as he ended up being in.
Murder on the Orient Express came out in 2017, and this was supposed to come out in 2020. It was supposed to come hot on the heels of that movie, which, I get. Like, sure, that's, you got, movie does well, he wants to make these, and, Branagh's the type of guy that I could see him turning this into a franchise, and having it be a successful franchise. There's a reason why we're getting Knives Out too. Like, these are popular now, and Knives Out is very much in that Agatha Christie type formula. Get a bunch of stars together, murder, that kind of thing. The first delay was, I think, because of COVID. And then I remember just kind of seeing, like, it just kind of disappeared for a while, and I was like, did it come out already? Did I miss it? And because movies were like that, it would have been a very weird time movie wise.
Mm.
But yeah, and then I think it was postponed again to the controversy with Army Hammer. Is he good in the movie? Do you like him in the movie?
Yeah, I mean, he does a fine job. Everyone works really well together. He's got good chemistry with the other actors. So from an acting standpoint, no complaints there. They did the studio had originally considered reshooting it with a different actor, but he is with any ensemble piece, you have so many people on the screen at any given time, and he is in such a large part of the film that they would have had to just redo the movie. So financially, it wasn't viable. And another thing that you had that happened kind of in this, COVID Army's Hammer scandal, was the acquisition of 20th Century Fox by Disney. So I'm sure that impacted things to some degree too, with the schedule and when stuff was coming out.
Let's call them the Forgotten Fox movies. This
Yeah.
this this happened also with New Mutants. Remember that was it felt like that movie was supposed to come out like 10 years ago. And then it finally they just kind of pushed it out after I think it came out after the Phoenix movie, the X-Men Dark Phoenix picture. I feel bad because I know how hard it is to make these movies. There's a beautiful shot in Murder on the Orient Express that opens up the movie. It's this long tracking shot where you see kind of everybody on the train, and it was like 17 takes all day spent trying to get this choreography right. And I've heard Branagh talk about it. He's like, yeah, we didn't shoot any coverage, so it's just like it's this. It's a beautiful long shot, but you need everybody everywhere to be right. And in the train station, he's got like 500 extras he's dealing with, and all of these different moving parts. So like to do, and Death on the Nile, you're on a boat, so not that's not easy either. So you have all of the logistic elements. So if, like, to replace one actor is just unless they want to, I guess, digitally replace him with Christopher Plummer or something. Like, I don't know.
They got the technology to do it, but
Oh God, that would be so weird if they just replaced him somehow,
yeah.
and it was like Grand Moff Tarkin in the movie, like in Rogue One. Like, oh my God. Um, but yeah, and he's a good actor. And as far as the controversial stuff, don't I don't know too much about it. From what I've heard, it's very strange. And and if you're Disney now putting this movie out, you're like, maybe don't lead with that guy, because you said he wasn't in the trailer a lot.
No, I mean, I knew he was in it just from the movie poster, and there are some scenes in the trailer, but it doesn't seem like he's that big of a part of it from the trailer.
One thing that happens here is I think the books and the other interpretations I've seen of these Agatha Christie stories, they're pretty episodic. They're
Mhm.
one-offs. I think Branagh, by giving the character a backstory and kind of making him more three-dimensional, it does feel like he's making this like almost like he's going to make a trilogy, or he's connecting them too. Because I think at the end of Orient Express, he's getting in a car to go to Egypt.
Right.
So like they're trying to connect these two movies, and I don't normally think they are. I don't think they were like that in the books, but I think he's fantastic. And for a guy who's playing the lead role and directing himself, which is old hat for him, but it's still really hard. What did you think of the production design? I think the production design of Murder on the Orient Express is just gorgeous, and the
No, it was.
cinematography is amazing.
Yeah, it was the production design was beautiful in this too. I think that was one of my other takeaways after seeing this one, is like, I just want to go to Egypt. Like, I want to go on a cruise down the Nile now, because it's just so beautiful. Um, and some of that, there's definitely some CGI in there, and some enhancements of things. I'm sure going down the Nile wouldn't be as beautiful in real life as it would be in this movie. Um, but yeah, no, it's beautiful. And we were talking, before we started earlier, about Belfast and how beautiful that film is. I mean, every film he makes is just, it truly is a work of art. Um, and you can just see how much he cares about every shot and the composition of it and his use of color. And that was one really big thing in Belfast, was the use of color. And I feel like some of that, there was hints of that throughout this one as well, with it kind of starting out black and white and then, transitioning to color. I really appreciate how he plays around with that.
Branagh's been making movies for a really long time now. Since the '80s, I think, since the late '80s, he always gets these amazing people. Derek Jacobi's been with him forever, and I think he's known Judi Dench for a really long time. So he has these go-to people for him. When Sidney Lumet made the 1974 version of Murder on the Orient Express, Sir John Gielgud is in it, and Finney is in it, and all of these huge names. And Finney at the time was doing a play. He was doing a play on the West End, and there's this whole story about how they rented an ambulance, and they would put him in the ambulance and wake him up. They get him around 4 o'clock in the morning. They put him on the ambulance and they lie him down, and then someone would be doing his makeup on the way into work, and they'd get him there and they'd finish him off, and then he'd do that, and then he'd go and do the play. He's a very different Poirot than Branagh. He's very different than Ustinov. But to me, that's kind of the mark of these characters. They're so classic and they're so indelible. Probably, I mean, Sherlock Holmes is definitely the most popular detective character in the history of, British literature and cinema. But right up there is Poirot. The character has been, like I said, the character's been around for a really long time. And the interpretation, it almost doesn't matter. Like Murder on the Orient Express opens up and he's in Jerusalem. And he solves a mystery, kind of like in Jerusalem before he even gets on the train. And in that little bit before we start, you can see all of the elements of his personality and how he does things. And it's just a really nice character moment. And whereas with other versions of the character, he's not so much a character, he's more of a cipher. He's kind of an audience surrogate, and also just this incredible smart guy who's, not very three-dimensional. It sounds like you were a little bit disappointed in this version of the movie. Do you want to see another one of these?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I like the formula. But anytime I come into a whodunit film, I want to be I want twists and turns and surprises and things that I didn't anticipate. So not getting that here, that is how I came into it. I wasn't familiar with the story. I wasn't, I had no prior knowledge of it. So that was the ride I expected to go on. And then figuring it out so early was, I figured it out early. And the only thing that was still kind of a question was, but how? I know who did it, but how did they do it? So yeah, that's really my only complaint is I wanted to be mad at myself for not figuring it out earlier. Instead, I was very proud of myself for figuring it out early. But I would absolutely see more of these. I love the formula of these really big casts that play off of each other so well. And I mean, Knives Out, that's a fantastic film, and it's a very similar kind of formula with that as well. So yeah, no, I would absolutely see another one.
Do you feel like this movie's going to make its money back?
I don't know. I mean, with the delays and just the, people are still not going back into the theaters, in the same way that they were before COVID. And there's just so much great stuff streaming right now. If you are uncomfortable, going into a theater, there's other options that are much easier. Let's see, weekend estimates, Death on the Nile. It did open in number one, 12.8 million. Not terrible.
Personally, I would definitely recommend Murder on the Orient Express. I loved it. I thought it was great. And it's a lot of fun. The mystery is great if you don't happen to know the mystery. If you do happen to know the mystery, that's fine too. You'll like this new interpretation, and you'll like all these people, and the look and the style and all that kind of stuff just adds to it. Would you say the same for Death on the Nile?
Yeah, I think if you're an Agatha Christie fan, which I should also say that I love Agatha Christie too. I just wasn't familiar with this one coming in. I think it's definitely worth checking out. I would just like I said, I if I'd gone in with different expectations, if I'd been familiar with the story, I probably would have looked at it with a different lens. But I would definitely recommend it. It's also, I'm now seeing that it cost 90 million to make. So it's made 37.9 million to date. So I think that's the worldwide box office. I mean, you've got cast that large. It's a pretty penny to make, but
Yeah,
it's
that's a big above the line movie right there.
yeah. You've got a lot of expensive people and parts and all of this stuff to it. But that's also what makes it really enjoyable to watch. You know, these big ensemble cast and just how they play off of each other and the moments of humor and how they interact with each other. To me, is one of the most enjoyable parts of watching it. Getting to see actors that don't normally work together work together.
Yeah, me too. It's great to see all these people all on screen together. All right, so we're going to wrap up shortly, but before we do, you recently, and I wanted to mention this on the show, you recently came up with an app for Fanbolt, which is amazing. I've seen the app. I love the way it works. It looks great, and I've actually looked on it for quite a few. I've looked at it for quite a few times, and your reviews and things are up there. Tell us a little bit about that, and if people want to access it, how can they get to it, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, right now it's only on iOS because I'm still figuring out how to do Android, and developing Android while not owning an Android phone is pretty difficult for testing. So I'm working my way through it. It was a fun project that I took on, during the 2020, 2021 madness, and teaching myself mobile dev. So yeah, I launched it this summer, or well, last summer. Time, what is it anymore? I don't know. But yeah, I launched it in summer of 2021, and it's essentially the site in your pocket. So all of the new articles that come out, you can view them on the app. You can leave comments on the app. We're integrating some gamification into the app as well. So the more you log in, the more you comment on articles, all that fun stuff. You can earn badges and collect badges in your profile. And I am working on a geek version of Wordle, which will also be a part of the Fanbolt app. So there'll be lots of kind of fun things that you can do inside of it, but you can get it right now on the Apple Store. It is 100% free. If you have an account on the site, then you can enjoy some of the gamification pieces with the badges. If you don't, you can still, continue without logging in and, read all of the articles and the reviews and all the good fun stuff.
And you still have the regular site, fanbolt.com, as well.
Yep. Yep.
So definitely, let's do this again. This was fun. Hopefully, we'll get a movie that you're more enthused about next time, or maybe we can do like a box office report, or some other thing. But I really enjoy these movies. I hope, even if this one isn't as good as Murder on the Orient Express, I hope maybe this is the dip. Maybe this is the Chamber of Secrets in the Harry Potter. Maybe there's a better one. Hopefully. But yeah, I would love to see more of these. And I hope he gets a chance to make them. Hopefully, it'll be easier and better to go into a theater by the time that happens. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Thanks so much for joining me. Thank you all out there for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, you can visit our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And now you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can find us on youtube.com/getbehindtherabbit. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Emma Loggins, and our sponsor, JMR Rentals. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.